The lonely side of growth. Have you ever reached a point in your life where you suddenly feel like you're standing on a different wavelength than everyone around you? A moment where you look at your friends, your environment, your daily conversations, and realize something doesn't fit the way it used to. It's not that anyone has done anything wrong. It's not that you've become cold or distant or arrogant. It's simply that you've grown mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and the world around you hasn't moved in the same direction. This is one of the quietest, most confusing forms of loneliness. The loneliness that appears not because you have no people, but because you no longer feel aligned with the people you have. Growth can be exciting. It can be empowering. It can feel like you finally stepped into the version of yourself that you are always meant to become. But growth also has a hidden cost, one that nobody tells you about. When you rise, you risk rising alone. There comes a moment when you start noticing the subtle differences. Maybe conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Maybe the habits you used to share with friends suddenly feel draining. Maybe the dreams you want to chase now feel too big or unrealistic to mention around certain people. And slowly, you start to feel a gap forming, not because you want it, but because growth naturally creates distance where alignment used to be. This distance feels strange. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like you're betraying the version of yourself who used to belong so easily. You start asking yourself questions. Why don't I feel as connected as before? Why does everything feel different even though nothing changed? Am I losing people or finding myself? And the truth is, it's a bit of both. Personal growth isn't just about leveling up your habits or mindset. It's about shedding old layers of identity. It's about redefining what you want, what you accept, and what you believe you deserve. It's about seeing the world more clearly. And sometimes that clarity reveals things you didn't want to see. You might realize you were surrounded by people who preferred comfort over improvement. People who laughed at your ambitions because they were afraid to pursue their own. People who kept you at a certain level because your growth challenged their stagnation. Yet even when you recognize this, it doesn't make the loneliness any easier. Because outgrowing people means outgrowing memories, routines, and parts of your own past. It means stepping into new territory without a guide, without a roadmap, and often without the support you thought you'd always have. But this moment, this uncomfortable, disorienting moment, is the birthplace of transformation. It's the space where you learn to stand on your own growth, where you learn to choose evolution over familiarity, and where you begin to understand that loneliness is not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's often the sign you're finally on the right one. What it means to outgrow people. Outgrowing people is one of those experiences that sounds harsh when you say it out loud, but in reality, it's one of the most natural transitions a person can go through. It doesn't mean you think you're above anyone. It doesn't mean you're judging or rejecting others. And it definitely doesn't mean you've changed for the worse, even though some people might try to label it that way. What it really means is simple. You're evolving in a direction that no longer matches the direction of certain people in your life. Think about who you were 5 years ago, the things you cared about, the habits you had, the beliefs you held, the dreams you thought were possible. Growth reshapes all of that. As you become more self-aware, your tolerance for negativity drops. As you become more disciplined, your patience for excuses fades. As you become more intentional, the random, chaotic, and unaligned parts of your life start to feel heavy instead of fun. And sometimes, the people who once felt like home start to feel like reminders of a past version of yourself that no longer fits. Outgrowing someone can happen slowly, like drifting apart over months or years without fully realizing it. Or it can happen suddenly in a single conversation where you recognize that you're not speaking the same language anymore. Your values shift, your mindset expands, your goals become clearer. And meanwhile, the people around you may still be operating from old patterns. They might be repeating the same cycles, making the same excuses, or staying stuck in the same mindset you worked hard to break out of. The danger isn't in growth itself. It's in what happens when your growth threatens someone else's comfort, when your improvement makes them confront their lack of it, when your progress acts like a mirror for their stagnation. That's when people might start reacting in ways that are less about you and more about their fear of change. They might minimize your progress. They might make jokes about your new habits. They might call you different in a tone that doesn't feel like a compliment. They might pressure you to go back to the old version of you, the one who was easier for them to understand and control. And if you're not careful, you might start shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You might downplay your goals. You might pretend you don't care as much as you do. You might hide your growth just to avoid making others uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Outgrowing people is not about abandoning anyone. It's about refusing to abandon yourself. It means recognizing that not everyone can go where you're going, not because they are bad people, but because your paths were never meant to stay aligned forever. Every level of your life demands a different version of you, and sometimes that version cannot survive in the same environment it was born in. Outgrowing people isn't a betrayal, it's a transition. It's a sign you're moving forward. And while it may come with sadness, confusion, or guilt, it's ultimately a testament to one thing. You are becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone more aligned with the future you want. The emotional cost of growing alone. One of the hardest parts of personal growth isn't the discipline, the sacrifice, or the hard work. It's the emotional distance that begins to form between you and the people you once felt closest to. Nobody warns you that the moment you start choosing better for yourself, you might begin losing the sense of belonging that once grounded you. Growth requires courage, but growing alone requires a kind of emotional endurance most people don't talk about. The emotional cost begins quietly. Maybe you start noticing that the people you used to vent to can't really understand your new problems. Maybe the wins you're proud of don't feel celebrated by the people you share them with. Maybe you start holding back your dreams because the room feels too small for them. These moments feel tiny, almost insignificant, but together they form a painful realization. You're stepping into a chapter of your life where fewer people can walk with you. That loneliness is real, it's heavy, it can make you question everything. You may find yourself asking, am I doing the right thing? Why does becoming better feel worse than staying the same? Why does the path forward feel so isolating? This confusion happens because growth doesn't just pull you upward, it pulls you away from old identities, old routines, and old connections. And when you don't have new aligned connections yet, the space between who you were and who you're becoming feels like an emotional desert. In this stage, you may feel misunderstood. People might say you've changed, and they don't mean it kindly. They may accuse you of being distant or too serious or too focused, as if wanting more is a flaw. And even though you're trying to evolve for the better, you may start feeling guilty, like your progress is a burden to the people around you. The greatest danger here is internal, not external. It's the temptation to shrink yourself just to feel connected again, to dim your ambition so you don't stand out, to silence your growth so others don't feel challenged, to sit back down when you are meant to stand out. And many people do exactly that. They stop growing, not because they're incapable, but because they don't want to outgrow the people they love. It's heartbreaking, but it's common. People trade their potential for acceptance. But here's the truth. If growing costs you connection, shrinking will cost you yourself. The emotional loneliness of growth is not a sign that you've chosen the wrong path. It's a sign that your old environment can no longer hold the person you're becoming. Loneliness is not punishment, it's a transition period. It's the quiet space before new people enter your life. The kind of people who aren't intimidated by your growth, but inspired by it. People who don't drain you, but fuel you. People who don't ask you to dim your light, but help you shine brighter. The emotional cost of growing alone is real, but the cost of staying small is far greater. Embracing growth and finding your new circle. Outgrowing people may feel like an ending, but in reality, it's the beginning of an entirely new chapter, one where alignment finally replaces obligation, and where connection comes from shared purpose instead of shared history. Growth can be isolating, but it's never meant to leave you alone forever. It's meant to clear space for the people who are truly meant to walk with you. The first step is acceptance. Accepting that not everyone can follow you into the next version of your life. This isn't a failure. It isn't a sign you're unlovable or difficult. It's simply a sign that your evolution requires a different environment and different people than the ones who shaped your past. When you embrace this truth, something powerful happens. You begin to understand that losing certain connections isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes it's an invitation to step into a bigger world. But that doesn't make the transition easy. There will be moments when you miss the familiarity of old circles, even if those circles weren't good for your growth. Humans crave connection, and letting go, even of things that no longer fit, is uncomfortable. You might find yourself wanting to go back, not because you belong there, but because it feels safe. Yet growth rarely happens in safe places. As you move forward, you'll start to attract people who resonate with your values, your mindset, your discipline, your vision. But that attraction only happens when you stop performing for your past and start standing confidently in your present. When you stop apologizing for your ambition. When you stop dulling your edges to make others comfortable. When you allow your growth to be visible, even if it intimidates people who haven't found the courage to evolve. Your new circle won't require you to hide your goals. They won't guilt trip you for wanting more. They won't mock your habits or question your dreams. Instead, they will energize you, challenge you, push you toward your potential. They will speak the language of progress because they are growing too. Finding these people doesn't happen overnight. It might take months, it might take years, but the journey becomes easier when you stop clinging to relationships that were only meant for a chapter, not the entire story. Sometimes the only thing preventing you from finding your true people is your refusal to release the ones who no longer align. The truth is, you're not meant to walk your entire life with the same group of people. Every stage of your growth will introduce you to new teachers, new friends, new influences, people who reflect the level you're stepping into, not the one you've outgrown. So don't fear the space that opens up when you let go. Don't fear the solitude. Don't fear the silence. This space is not emptiness, it's potential. This silence is not abandonment, it's alignment. You are not losing everyone. You are making room for the people who will match your energy, your purpose, your heart, and your future. Growth may separate you from who you were, but it will eventually connect you with who you were meant to become and with the people who are always meant to meet that version of you.